You're listening to Life Inspirations. The games we play. I've always loved games of all sorts. Mostly board games, card games, where people can get around and compete with each other. And this passion has spread not only to our own children, but to our grandchildren. And to a certain extent become a great environment where children can learn to compete, can learn to create strategies and play conservatively or take more risks, even learn how to handle losing well and winning for that matter. So games are great for kids and for all of us actually. It helps us improve our cognitive skills, our social skills, our family bonding, teamwork, patience. There are some games that have been around for years, like Monopoly, for example, where the aim is to buy up more and more property in houses and hotels and dominate your opposition by being the richest magnate out of all the players. And sometimes people go to jail and they're happy to be in there because they don't want to land on the person who's dominating, land on their property. More lately, I've been loving games like Settlers of Catan and Quacks and Dominion, Camel Up, some of these sort of games that we've had spin around the family. When my children were very young, we played a game called Holiday and another game called The Game of Life. And the aim was to get home first with your counter before anyone else, with as much money as you can. There was great fun and enjoyment had, but everyone, of course, had to stick to the rules. No cheating. Otherwise, the game is ruined, or could be. In the late 1990s, my late brother Jim was engaged to be married, and he was deeply in love. And he was living with us, and it was very common for us to play games with a wider circle of people, including Judy, Jim's bride-to-be. And we were playing card games like Phase 10 or 5 Crowns or something like that. And just part of the rules is you can use penalty-type cards, particularly against the person who's leading. But a couple of times, Jim was so gaga in love that he refused to use these cards on Judy, who was clearly winning. And that greatly annoyed all of us. We were shaking our heads in disbelief. How could he do that? Jim was going outside of the rules or the protocols of the games to favour her. And I've been thinking about this recently because, as we said, games and board games and cards, etc., are fantastic preparers for life as we know it. But do they really prepare us for things that are most important in life? Things like love and mercy and generosity aren't really part of these sort of games. And just maybe Jim, in his love-struck state, was tapping into something beyond our dog-eat-dog ways of doing things, because most of these games are Darwinian by nature. That is, it's a survival of the fittest. And it sends the message that money is the ultimate thing, or winning is the ultimate thing. So what I'm saying here is all these board games and games that we're talking about are great fun and great for the playground of mankind, but fall short when it comes to those things that really matter in life, when we're superimposing our real lives on the game board. That is, looking at the real game of life. There's a parable that Jesus taught in Luke 12:16-21, which can illustrate what we're talking about here. And it's actually worth reading it out. It says there, "And he told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, 'What shall I do? I have no place to store my crops.' Then he said, 'This is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you've prepared for yourself?' Verse 21, this is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich toward God." This is quite a frank diagnosis of what's going on. Jesus doesn't say the man was evil or wicked, he just calls him a fool. I mean, this man did not deliberately set out to neglect his family or wife or his kids. He didn't establish the goal of becoming a greedy and self-preoccupied person. And he didn't purpose in his heart to defy God or close off all compassion for the poor. He just had other things to do. He was too busy. He devoted his life to the wrong things. His passion, his interest started and stopped with his accumulation of wealth. There was no room for God, or probably others. And this was the same thing that really tormented King Solomon back in the day. He said, I hated all the things I had toiled for under the sun, because I must leave them to the one who comes after me. So what's the real lesson here? Jesus said, so it is for everyone who accumulates riches for themselves, here it is, but are not rich toward God. That's the object of the game. That's the object of our lives. You see, your life with God's help can be a source of pleasure to the God of the universe. And being rich towards God deploys this thing called faith, because without faith it's impossible to please God. You see, when the game is over, all that will matter will be God's assessment of our lives. Everyone in that day, no matter who they are, no matter how rich or poor they are, will stand before God. So, what does being rich towards God actually mean? John Ortberg, in his great book, It All Goes Back into the Box, defines it this way. Being rich toward God means growing a soul that is increasingly healthy and good. Being rich towards God means loving and enjoying the people around you. Being rich towards God means learning about your gifts and passions and doing good work to help improve the world. And yes, it means being generous or becoming generous with your stuff. It means making that which is temporary become the servant of that which is eternal. Being rich towards God means savouring every roll of the dice and every trip around the board. And the real danger of going around the board of life, the game of life, is that we forget to ask what really matters. We race around the board with shallow relationships, frenzied schedules, preoccupied souls. And the temporary rewards that we get from playing the game can lull us into pretending that the game will never end. But it does. It all goes back into the box, as Ortberg says. And the question may well be, how will I know what day the game ends before death? And the Talmud said this, treat every day as if it were the day before your last. Arrange your life around what matters most, starting today. Jesus took being rich towards God to another level. He expressed it in two great commandments, each built around a single word, love. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, he said. Love your neighbour as yourself. Everything else is commentary. No one can do this and be poor in God's eyes. No one can fail to do this and be rich in God's eyes. And so being rich towards God begins with giving to God that which he desires most of all. And here it is. What he desires most from you is you, your heart and devotion. The best gifts that God can give us is himself. So we can offer God our resources and acts of service, but the gift he desires most is us. And the wonderful example in the Word of God is Jesus dealing with Peter, who denied him. Peter, who opened his mouth and put his foot in it. Jesus' final question for his friend, because he was his friend, Peter, do you love me? And 3 times he asked Peter this question. And he would go on to tell Peter what he wanted Peter to do, but what he wanted most was love. Augustine said that all ethics can be summed up in this: love God and do what you will. For the soul that truly loves God will want to do what God loves. And so the reason God created people, created you and I, is so that he could be with us. In Eden, he would come and walk with man and woman he had made, just to be with them. Then after the fall, we experienced separation from God. And it's as if from that moment God was haunted by his desire to be with people. He walked with Enoch and Noah. He was with Abraham and Isaac. He was with Joseph in slavery and in prison. He even formed a nation so he could have a people to be with. He said, then I will dwell among the Israelites and be their God. They will know that I am the Lord, their God, who brought them out of Egypt, so that I might dwell among them. Amazing. And his desire to be with us was so strong that he said, I'm going down there. And one day a baby was born in Bethlehem. And this Jesus made this offer. Anyone who loves me will obey my teaching. My Father will love them, and we will come to them and make our home with them. The soul that's with God is a soul that is rich. So we can't make ourselves love God more by sheer willpower, but we can choose to be with him. I can ask him to go through the day with me when I wake up. I learn to see his goodness in creation and beauty. I take time to ask for his help as we work together. I see him in the people with whom I meet. I hear his voice in what I read. I ask his forgiveness for the many times I mess up. I thank him at the end of the day for his presence in it. Yes, I can't make myself love God, but I can come to know him better. And because God is love, the more I come to know him, the more my love for him will grow. And guess what? The more we get to know this loving God and to know his love and closeness, the more we see people through the eyes of God. And that's the second part of Jesus' commandment. Love God and love people as yourself. Our love and our prayers for people who are around us will deepen and grow. And so when we're talking about the game of life and the games we play as children or as people, we must remember that things that are important on this earth, the stuff, the money, the temporary sort of things that are around us, will disappear. And the only things that will remain is that which is eternal. And all that will be left is love. That which was done out of love for God will last. Every human being you see is a cleverly disguised receptacle of eternity. You can take love with you. The object of life is to be rich towards God. God bless you.